Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. And welcome once again to another edition of the Juice Box. I am Juice Springsteen here on a steamy Friday here on the East Coast. But in the recording booth, it's not as hot. But this past weekend, full of shows, everything was hot and heavy, as John Germain might say. But that's for you, Josh Heisenberg. As always, I am Juice Springsteen at Juicy Steen on Twitter, at Juicy Wrestling Closet on Instagram. Subscribe to the Juice Box on YouTube at Juicy Steen. If you listen to this show on Amazon Music, juicysteen.podbean.com, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, if you listen to it on any of those, please give this show a 5-star rating, and if you can write a review on said platform, that would also be fantastic. As I said, Clash of the Castle, Monday Night Raw, a lot of hot stuff going on to coincide with the heat wave going across the Midwest and Northeast, as it were. So we will dive into that. We will discuss some stuff that happened on Dynamite, look a little bit of a look ahead to the Forbidden Door card, which is already, this is happening in, 10 days? 9 days? We are closing in, and we have a pretty stacked card already. So we'll discuss that, and then, of course, next week we'll have the prediction show, as we always do, and I think the following week is Money in the Bank, so that'll be nice. Back-to-back weeks of shows. Looking forward to it. As I've been talking about, I will be, trying to integrate more unique content to this feed. Currently in the process of doing such. I'm excited for what's to come, and I'm looking forward to pushing out that new content as 2024 continues and beyond. Again, I'm really not gonna delve too deep into the details, considering we are still in some early stages of some things. But I'm just very excited to continue to work hard and push this stuff out. So let's get out of that realm. Let's also discuss who killed WCW. I'd like to discuss that here for a moment. Episode 3 happened this past week, and this was pretty much the all Vince Russo episode. If you want a lot of what I'm going to say here, but in a longer format, check out Final Bell Media on YouTube. Check out the third episode review show that myself, Drew Baydala, Blake Mitchamore, who came in and filled in for Ellis, and Corey, all four of us discussed the third episode. Really great discussion, a lot of interesting takes, I think, across the board, as we all try to really nail down and pinpoint who, in fact, killed WCW. Without going into too much detail about what I discussed there, I will mention that as this series has played on, I have become more and more depressed with each episode, pretty much ending with, and here comes more bad stuff to happen to WCW as it was on its way to its ultimate demise. It's been tough. It's been tough, but I like seeing this new. I think one of the best parts of this documentary I've been clamoring about has truthfully been that it's not a WWE production. with The Rock, Brian Gewirtz, the Seven Bucks Productions, working with the Dark Side of the Ring guys, Evan and Jason, in accordance with Vice, to come up with this documentary series, a 4-part series. It really does give a different perspective on WCW as a whole from pretty much everybody that was there. Sting, Flair, Hogan, those guys are not involved, but Brett, Booker T, Conan, Goldberg, Eric Bischoff, Vince Russo, a lot of mainstay talent throughout WCW's rich history have been interviewed here, and it's all really giving a take on the company from an honest perspective. Now, that's not to say that WWE's take is an dishonest perspective, but it's easier to tell the story from a perspective of a winning side when you were actively in a battle with said company. These guys and girls, Medusa's in there, I think Janie Engle's in there, Brad Siegel, some execs from Turner, of course. Ted Turner's son is even featured in this thing. The perspective from some of these folks, come from a place of just how day-to-day operations were. Guy Evans, the guy who wrote the Nitro book, which I highly, highly recommend. If you are a pro wrestling fan and you want the perfect complement to this series, you got to go to, I think it's Nitro Book, www.nitrobook.com. You can find it on Amazon. Guy Evans is the author, and he has written a phenomenal book detailing the rise and fall of the empire that was WCW from 95 to 2001. But as I was saying, the perspective from WWE, where they were the winners, and you can paint the history of WCW however you really want. And these guys and girls kind of just tell it how it was. Kevin Nash has been kind of saying it how he feels. I would say he's told the truth and lied about certain things equally. And even so, I wouldn't say he's lied. It's just some things it's clear that, he's only taking a certain angle. But, I mean, that's what practically everybody in the documentary is doing. They can only provide so much from their own perspective. I will say Conan has been I don't even want to say a surprise, just a breath of fresh air in regards to, quote, shoot interviews and just talking about the real, again, day-to-day of WCW. I think it's been fascinating to hear his side of it, where he can agree. Some good moments here or there, but of course, the waters get muddied whenever Vince Russo comes in, and, there was optimism maybe, but it was quickly deteriorating, and Conan, for sure, has been given some of the best responses, I would say, to the discussion of WCW. Real quick, though, to kind of go through this episode, again, it's the Russo episode, where some of his comments have really put him in, I guess, hot water, if not just in everybody's Twitter feed. Russo stated that he maybe thought at the time, although I think he's doubled and tripled down on this, that he is in fact more entertaining, more over than 80% of the WCW roster, which, here's my thing. I disagree, but that's my opinion. I do think Vince Russo can be entertaining. As a matter of fact, I think he was entertaining at times in WCW. How about this? I'll say this. I'll say more of Vince Russo's decisions as a creative booker, writer, showrunner, what have you, some of those were less interesting, less entertaining than Vince Russo himself on the show. And Vince Russo is not a wrestler. You know, he was former WCW champion, and they discussed that at length. Same with David Arquette, of course. But I don't know. I just, as someone who watched it as it happened, but too young to really grasp it, and then seeing the weekly Nitros, pay-per-views, Thunders, certain events as an adult, and you see, like, wow, you know, maybe these decisions weren't the best. Maybe more could have been done to save WCW from these bad decisions. I'm not sure many people could have saved it. We're going to get to the, of course, dreadful, to me, episode 4 of this next week. And I see no reason to think that it's going to be the most depressing as they discuss the merger, the no buyer circumstance of WCW, where it ended up getting purchased, of course, by WWE. And I'm looking forward to seeing the behind-the-scenes footage, seemingly unearthed for the first time, of the final Nitro, featuring, I think, Sting, Dustin Rhodes. I remember 3 Count being on there. Certain talent being utilized. You're seeing Bruce Pritchard and Shane McMahon backstage as really WCW and those guys, the talent there really didn't really know what was going on as that day unfolded. I mean, I think everybody kind of went in thinking, okay, this is bizarre, but, you know, we'll be on TV next week. Nitro will just come back. It'll be, I don't know. I'm going to be interested to hear what some of the talent has to say, specifically a Kevin Nash, or a Goldberg, who I don't believe were on the final Nitro, and then subsequently were not on any, WWE programming until Nash in 2002, Goldberg in 2003, due to the contracts from WCW that really, I mean, I would have done the same thing. I would have taken all the time to cash all the money, get all the checks you can, while not having to work and be injured and be hurt all the time, until I got that new deal. So I don't blame them for that whatsoever. But, I mean, everything was discussed in this 3rd episode. They talk Halloween Havoc 99, which if you really want to see what WCW ended up being, there are 2 pay-per-views that, of course, they both have worked shoots, but are really, the best way I can describe them are total fever dreams. One is Halloween Havoc 99, and the other, of course, is Bash the Beach 2000. So if you have any time for that, go check out those shows. But all in all, really enjoyed discussing the 3rd episode of the Who Killed WCW series with the guys of Final Bell Media. Looking forward to working with them maybe more in the future once this series ends, but we shall see. Let's get into AEW first, and then we will close with the Clash of the Castle kind of review into what we saw on Monday Night Raw and a potential what we could see tonight on SmackDown, as the more things change, the more they stay the same. I'm looking at you, Cody, in the Bloodline. But Dynamite this past week, I mean, we started off hot and heavy. Like I said, Roosh, MJF, commercial free. This was a battle, and MJF looked shredded. No scarf. MJF is a little bizarre. MJF gets the win. I have seen rumors, and I am under the impression that Roosh will not be able to wrestle at the Forbidden Door show. Thus, this match had to take place on Wednesday night. But I enjoyed the match, and now MJF gets to wrestle the word is Spanish for wizard. Hechicero, maybe? That's all I could come up with. But that's who MJF is facing at Forbidden Door, seemingly in a random one-on-one match. But, you know, what can you do? Not much you can do. If Roosh can't perform and this is what you want to roll with, sure. I think more importantly is what's going to happen after Forbidden Door with MJF. Where does MJF go leading into Blood and Guts, which happens in July? All In and All Out, of course, the following month. So a lot of stuff in there that we'll have to see what is going to happen. Additionally, we had the quote-unquote all-star 8-man tag, Zack Sabre Jr., Takeshita, Roddy Strong, and Kyle Fletcher against Dante Martin, Orange Cassidy, Kyle O'Reilly, and the deranged, unhinged Mark Briscoe. The good guys did get the win, and we will see a few of these guys at Forbidden Door. Specifically, Zack Sabre Jr. taking on Orange Cassidy. And then we also get Dante Martin, Lio Rush, Jack Perry, Mark Briscoe, and Konosuke Takeshita, and one more combatant in the ladder match for the vacant AEW TNT title. That shall be insane, for sure. We also had Swerve Strickland, Will Ospreay in a kind of a one-on-one promo battle where Swerve really took it kind of personally. He elevated it to a personal level in referring to Ospreay's children, which was a no-no. But I mean, Swerve's got kids too, so I mean, you could really just go back and forth there. But I think the match that we're going to see at Forbidden Door is going to be special. We'll get into the preview and predictions, of course, next week here on the Juice Box. But until we get there, at this moment, I think it's going to be tough for Will Ospreay to not win this thing. Stranger things have happened, though. So I don't know, but I like how they're building it. I've said it as soon as they began this feud, this build, you've really kind of put yourself into a corner. You can't, both guys could use a win here because I think if either guy lose, it could be detrimental to, one guy who just became champion and one guy who has been holding the world title now for a bit, but it's been lackluster, so he needs a big win, but Ospreay needs a win too because he's been ascending, and I think he is the future. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be tough to kind of balance that back and forth. We had the Acclaimed versus the Young Bucks in the Eliminator match, which honestly, 99% of the Eliminator matches have resulted in the champions being victorious, thus nullifying any future tag title match. However, I cannot believe I'm about to say this. The Acclaimed defeated the Young Bucks. I'll say that again if you guys turned your volume down to not hear about this. The Acclaimed defeated the Young Bucks. So the Acclaimed get to have another World Tag Team Championship match, and it's going to be against the Young Bucks. I'm not sure if that's going to be at Forbidden Door necessarily. Maybe it's at Blood and Guts. Who really knows? But we shall see. Yeah, so exciting stuff there. We had a Owen Hart Foundation Women's Tournament quarterfinal. Chris Statlander gets the victory. And right now, that puts us at Chris Statlander taking on the winner of Serena Deeb and Willow Nightingale in the semifinals. Other half of the bracket, Hikaru Shida and Diana Perazzo. And the winner of that will take on the winner of Mariah May versus Saraya. Of course, we will touch on the men's bracket here in a moment as well. Then we do get Claudio Castagnoli, PAC, men's tournament quarterfinal with Bryan Danielson on commentary. This was another great match. And PAC gets the surprise pin here in 11 minutes, 5 seconds. He will take on the victor of the match taking place at Forbidden Door between Bryan Danielson and Shingo Takagi. So I would wager Danielson's going to get that victory, and we'll get Danielson versus PAC. And if we get that, then whoever wins that match will take on either Rey Fenix, Jay White, someone who has not been announced, which I believe is called the wild card entrant, and it won't be announced until match time, which I'm not sure if that's going to be at Forbidden Door or not. It might be on Dynamite. But they're taking on the one and only Jeff Jarrett. Some people are upset with this, and here's the thing. Oh, why couldn't Jeff Jarrett have been involved in last year's Owen Hart tournament? If you're going to make the argument, that Owen Hart and Jeff Jarrett were friends, which is true, and tag partners, which is very true, and real life close friends, all true. But this tournament is not purely you have to be a former champion or you got to have certain criteria. I think this is a nice moment for Jeff Jarrett to get involved here. He's going to take the loss. He's not going to advance in the tournament. More than likely, he's going to have to face Hangman Adam Page, and we'll get Hangman Adam Page versus, Jay White or Rey Fenix. We could get Danielson versus Hangman in the final. There's so many different ways this could turn out. Jeff Jarrett is a blip on the radar in regards to this 8-man tournament. I don't know why there's such an uproar. If you're not a fan of pro wrestling further back than 1999, then you wouldn't be aware that Jeff Jarrett and Owen Hart are friends or were friends and have a history, And I don't, the AEW fans have been, as much as I give them credit because they are the quote more hardcore fan, and I'm an AEW fan as well, but I love all of them, all wrestling, WWE, AEW, New Japan, TNA, and NXT. We'll get to some of that discussion here in a moment. But those that are more strictly AEW fans and have that tribalistic nature to them, seemingly maybe they're not as smartened up as one might think, and are upset that Jeff Jarrett is in the tournament. But if you have watched wrestling for any amount of time, you know that it's just a placeholder. He's going to lose. Jarrett's not going to ever win past the first round, and that's it. It's just to be in the tournament. It's a nice little moment. Like, why are we taking this so much to heart here? Pun intended. So, back to Dynamite. I think overall it was solid. The storylines have been built up more and more as we get closer to Forbidden Door. And I think it's been nice more recently, I'd say probably since Revolution, where more of the storylines that are leading up into the pay-per-views for AEW monthly have actually been cohesive, have actually had some, nice balance to them, some nuance, some longevity, purpose, a lot of different words I could describe the storylines being told with AEW. And yeah, that's been a great 3-month run. Here's my question to those in AEW. Can you keep this momentum going? Can you keep this same energy and momentum as we move forward to arguably the biggest shows of the year for AEW? Double or Nothing was exciting. I consider it a WrestleMania type, tentpole event based on those, it being the anniversary, the first pay-per-view, this and that. But then you've got All In and All Out, one of which, of course, taking place at Wembley. That is your massive, massive arena show. You had an incredible show last year. Of course, the CM Punk involvement. We'll talk about Punk in a little bit. But a lot of different things happened at those two shows. And that really set everything in motion as you get to October with Wrestle Dream, November, and December, of course, Full Gear. And if they do World's End again, who knows? But if they can keep the storyline progression the same, if not build upon it, make it bigger, make it better, keep everybody invested, keep the ratings at a certain point, but maybe gradually get better, and you can pull that off until the rest of the year, I think what could happen, whether it's later this year or early next year, that TV deal, that media rights deal will not only be worthwhile, but worth it to the company that does give them those rights, because you got to have more than wrestling each and every week. Even though this is a pro wrestling show, pro wrestling product where the best, quote, wrestle, I think it's very important to have strong quality storylines week to week, bringing in the casual viewer that may only know WWE as the only wrestling in town, and, just grow from there. They do have the best wrestling, I would say, out of the two companies. In ring, I think it's pretty safe to say that AEW clears WWE. But you want to talk storytelling? You want to talk long-term booking? You want to talk investing in characters longer than a week or for 1 month leading to a pay-per-view? WWE is that standard. It's been the standard. It will continue to be the standard, especially with Paul Levesque at the helm. We will touch on that here in a moment. I will just like to touch on the Forbidden Door card one more time here, because I want to make sure I got all the matches. Bryan Danielson versus Shingo Takagi in the Owen Hart first round match. MJF taking on Hechicero. Best I can pronounce it. I have to hear the name on TV. I'm not sure they even announced it on TV, so I have to hear the name pronounced. Otherwise, I butchered it. Jeff Cobb has an open challenge match for the NJPW World TV title. Jon Moxley defends the IWGP World title against Naito. Zack Sabre Jr. and Orange Cassidy in a singles match. Mina Shirakawa challenges Timeless Toni Storm for the AEW Women's title. And, of course, Mariah May is going to be in the corner of both of these women. So that'll be a fascinating dynamic for sure. And, back to the stories, back to the characters. That has been a story that's been working. I'm a fan of Mariah May. I'm a fan of Toni Storm. I am slowly but surely becoming a Mina Shirakawa fan as well. Mercedes Moné. Stephanie Vaquer. Winner take all for the TBS title and the New Japan Strong Women's title. Oh, man. I mean, again, we'll get to predictions next week, but is Mercedes Moné going to just walk out of here with 2 belts already? I don't know. Ladder match for the vacant AEW TNT title. Takeshita, Mark Briscoe, Jack Perry, Dante Martin, and Lio Rush, with one more contestant yet to be named. And then, of course, Swerve Strickland defending the AEW World title against Will Ospreay. That is going to be one hell of a match for sure. So looking forward to Forbidden Door. But let's get into what happened at Clash at the Castle here in the WWE portion of the Juice Box. First of all, I would like to mention this. Now, I've done a little bit of research here. I want to make sure I have it all down. I think outside of that, the first Clash at the Castle, mostly every PLE for WWE outside of the United States. However, I think Money in the Bank had more, primarily because it had the Money in the Bank matches, of course. But Lyon, France, the Backlash there, Backlash in Puerto Rico, anywhere from 5 to 7 matches have been all of these cards. I know. I think when Eisenberg and I are doing the prediction shows, it's absolutely discussed. We absolutely talk about how there's only so many matches. Are they going to add a segment, or is there anything on the pre-show? Is there going to be a interview segment? What's going to happen? I don't think they need it. And we're talking about storylines. We're talking about how WWE, really accentuates their stories in their shows, and it doesn't really, have to be all in ring or that's it. WWE has, of course, been on fire in that regard. And that's why they can put 5 shows or 5 matches on a show and it not be the worst thing in the world. And in fact, I think it helps the show. You have quality and a perfect quantity. 6 matches is fine, but you can do 5 matches in a concise 3.25 hours, and I think you're golden, to be quite honest with you. Let's get into what happened. Cody Rhodes was successful in the I Quit match to retain his undisputed WWE title. We, of course, had Mama Rhodes being taunted, a slap in the face. We had Cody with the handcuffs, the steel steps, Styles quits. And then once Cody goes up the ramp, Solo Sikoa and the Bloodline 2.0, if you will, attack Cody until we get Randy Orton, Kevin Owens coming in to save the day. As of this recording, SmackDown has not happened yet. Thus, tonight we will find out if we will, in fact, get the Money in the Bank, I would assume, if they're going to do it, 6-man tag between the Bloodline and Orton, Owens, and Cody Rhodes. But I will mention this. Cody Rhodes has this match. He goes to the outside of the, he gets attacked by the Bloodline. And after the fact, and Orton saves him, kind of helps him out. Orton has a little bit of a look, a glare, a glimpse, a stare, if you will, at none other than Cody Rhodes' world title draped over the shoulder. Does this mean Orton is going to turn on Cody? Does this mean that Orton helps win the match with the Bloodline? Hey, I want a world title shot. I earned this. I helped you. We have a legacy together. I don't know. I hope it means... here's the thing. I think Cody and Randy Orton could have a great match, regardless if Randy's a heel or not. I think you could back the legacy storyline and touch on all that. In addition, to the title being a big portion, without Orton being a heel, without him turning on Cody, because I think you could do it after the match. I think you could build the match off this respect, but Orton gets pissed after beats him down. Then you lead into whatever we could get at SummerSlam, although it seems like SummerSlam would be the match between the two. Because at this point, I think Gunther has a date with Destiny with the World Heavyweight Champion, either Damian Priest or Seth freaking Rollins. We'll get to that in a moment. But I Quit match was pretty damn solid. And, I had no doubt Cody was going to win. AJ Styles now. Do we possibly see AJ Styles in TNA? I would love to see him at Slammiversary or Bound for Glory or any of the TNA shows that they potentially could have going forward. Jordan Grace has been a pioneer for that. We had, Joe Hendry on NXT. How could you forget that? The relationship between WWE and, I was going to say NXT, and TNA has honestly been pretty wild so far. If it ended right now, I think it would be pretty successful with how it's gone. But let me tell you what, you get AJ Styles to go to TNA for another match, you are really going to help TNA grow. That's how I first knew about AJ Styles, even though he was in the latter stages of WCW. And he honestly was the Sting of TNA, and even though Sting wasn't TNA, and he just honestly was the heart and soul, performed well above any sort of expectation in every single match and moment he was in, and his theme music kicked ass. So give me the I am one more time, please. We had the triple threat match, tag team, women's tag team titles on the line. Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill somehow lose the titles. They hit their finisher on Shayna Baszler, and we get Isla Dawn pinning Baszler with the hometown girls and the hometown crowd just going home happy, which kind of spelled doom for Piper Niven and Drew McIntyre, and we will get to that. I'm not sure yet if Bianca and Jade will split. If they do, I don't think it's yet. Again, I mentioned this to Josh kind of as a throwaway, but just because it's a triple threat, that does leave open a window where Jade and Bianca won't get pinned but could lose the title. And what happened? They gave it to the Scots. So it's nice to see Isla Dawn and Alba Fire win those titles. Looking forward to seeing what they do with them moving forward. Chad Gable, Sami Zayn. Otis helped Maxine to the back. Didn't help Gable win. Gable was really just continuously pissed off. However, he was supposed to be in a Money in the Bank ladder match qualifier, and that is no more because of the beatdown he suffered at the hands of the Wyatt Sick6. We will discuss that here in a moment as well. Do we see Chad Gable pop up somewhere else? We will find out as well. But Sami Zayn wins. I gotta think, and we'll talk about it here with Raw, of course, but you gotta think that it is a date with destiny between Braun Breaker and Sami Zayn. Bayley, Piper, Niven. Of course, Bayley gets the win, retains her championship, and now we will get Nia Jax and Bayley, assuming that stays and we don't get a Money in the Bank cash in. Nia and Bayley at SummerSlam, which would be wild. Main event. This was fascinating. And when Piper loses, when the women's tag team from Scotland wins, it was either or. You know, you had one, you had the other. How is Damien and Drew going to fare? And, of course, it was a banger. It was a hard-fought match. The referee got knocked into oblivion. But who came out to save the day as referee? One CM Punk, who counted 1, he counted 2. Not so fast, my friend. And went a little shoving match with McIntyre, gave McIntyre a low blow. Priest gets the win with the South of Heaven chokeslam. CM Punk celebrated with the crowd, at least some that were there to see him. And we now get what happened on Raw. Let's touch on that. We started the night off with Seth Rollins, which was pretty wild. First appearance since losing the world title at Mania 40. Damian Priest interrupts him and says, look, I'm just going to tell you straight up. Let's go. You and me. World title at Money in the Bank. It's practically a rematch. No rematch clause invoked, but it's practically a rematch. I like the babyface nature of Priest saying, hey, give me this thing. Let's go. I earned this, but you're back. Why not? Let's run this match back. So we don't know where things stay. We know Gunther is waiting in the wings at SummerSlam. Who will be champion once we get to Cleveland on August 3rd? Who knows? But I think Gunther, at least at this time, has to be the favorite to potentially win the World Heavyweight title. And I am here for that. But it's nice to see Seth Rollins back. Honestly, kind of quick, but depending on what they've got going on, I'm sure he healed how he needed to, and we're back. So we shall see how things progress. But it is nice, to be honest, where, you know, no unnecessary tournament, no eliminator matches, no contender matches. Two guys just really appreciated the battle between the two that they had before and the respect for the championship that they fought for at WrestleMania. Well, you know, Damian Priest didn't really fight for it at WrestleMania, but he did take the title eventually. But technically, it's not really a rematch clause. But it's two guys that respect the title and they want to have the match. And I think it's nice for a simple booking, a simplistic way to book the match instead of just like, well, you got to win this, and the other guy's got to lose, and you got to win this. Why can't it be simple sometimes? So props to the booking team there. Like I said, Otis finally seemed to sever the tie between him and Gable. Although I still think we're going to get Otis eventually disbanding from Gable completely in the future. But with what happened in the Wyatt Sick6 interaction at the end, Chad Gable might not be on Raw for a while. Io Sky wins her qualifying match for the Money in the Bank ladder match. As we look at the card as it stands, Damian Priest versus Seth freaking Rollins for the World Heavyweight title. 5 women plus Io Sky for the Women's Championship opportunity in the Money in the Bank ladder match. And then we will get to this as well. The main event of Monday Night Raw. Jey Uso, Finn Balor, Rey Mysterio. Jey Uso gets the victory. So now Mr. Yeet in the Bank, potentially. Jey Uso versus 5 other combatants for that Money in the Bank ladder match. I would wager that these qualifiers are going to happen over the next couple Mondays and Fridays. So I'm interested to see who gets placed in the match. Sami Zayn came to the ring for a promo trying to figure out who he wants to defend his title against. Braun Breaker, Sheamus also putting his name in there. And, I mean, I'll take Braun Breaker and Sammy. I'll take Braun Breaker and Sheamus, which we did see. Sheamus and Sammy would be interesting as well. But, especially because Sheamus has never won the Intercontinental title. I think it'd be a pretty interesting moment. But let's get to Braun Breaker versus Sheamus. This was a battle. It was really just a war. No contest, of course. And Breaker did. There was a. I don't even want to say a botch. He tried to do a top rope Hurricane Rana just by hopping up, and it was a tough move. The announcers kind of covered for it by saying, "Look, the ropes are slippery at times." It's a big guy trying to pull off a move like that. It's not easy, and I like that. It's a benefit of the doubt. Not every move is going to come off perfect. It's insane and naive and, quite frankly, stupid to assume that every match is going to have every move hit perfectly by every wrestler, no matter what size or the condition of the ring or anything. So, Breaker and Sheamus beat the tar out of each other. And then, of course, Ludwig Kaiser was a part of it, causing a DQ here. Breaker takes out Sheamus with a spear. And then in one of the most creative camera shots we've seen in a while, Kevin Dunn, you could never do this, Kaiser's running around one side of the ring to try to avoid Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker goes the other route and absolutely meets Kaiser in the middle, spears him to oblivion. Strap the rocket to Braun Breaker. Give him the IC title and let him run with it. Hell, let him win Money in the Bank. At this point, I want to see Braun Breaker just torch the roster every week, spear everybody, do what you got to do. He's believable. He's athletic as hell. He's a specimen. He's the best parts of Rick and Scott Steiner. He's almost unstoppable like Goldberg, except I don't think he's intentionally trying to hurt people or unknowingly hurting people. That's a callback to the Who Killed WCW Volume 3, that episode. Or, well, kind of 2 and 3, where Goldberg seemingly hurt people intentionally or not. Vince Russo seems to say intentionally. Bret Hart seems to say he just doesn't really know what he was doing in there. He was green. He wasn't that great at working. And, of course, he's going to hurt people. He pro wrestling is a work, but someone didn't tell Goldberg that. So, but Braun Breaker, man, he's a specimen. I can't wait to see what the future holds for him. As a huge fan of the Steiners, I'm a huge fan of Braun Breaker. So we'll see. Nothing's set in stone with where he fits on the card. But let's get to it. This is where we're going to close the show today. Kind of a quick-ish episode here, but nevertheless, I do want to touch on what we saw at the end of Monday Night Raw. For how many weeks now we have seen QR codes running amok. This is happening. They're kind of acknowledging the QR codes. They're kind of acknowledging, what's happening with our network feed, and the lights are going off and on, and who knows what's happening. And of course we know it's going to be the extension of the Bray Wyatt character, more accurately, the Uncle Howdy character, and potentially more people with that character as an extension of what Bray Wyatt brought to the table during his last run in WWE. And this is what happens. We get some of the most interesting camera shots I think we've ever seen in WWE. A shout out to Rob Fee, who clearly had an integral part in this whole scenario. But Jey Uso wins his Money in the Bank qualifier. The lights go out. The lights go out. Matt Cardona. And we see the door, which we never really got to see what was on the other side of the door back in the day of The Fiend. We see presumably Sister Abigail, who again presumably is Nikki Cross, crawling up the ramp, but telling everybody to go back through the curtain, through the door with her. And all we see is destruction. We see multiple members being revealed at every turn of the camera. First, let's talk about the destruction. The gorilla position, which, of course, is referenced to where Gorilla Monsoon would sit before certain matches with a headset, telling wrestlers, okay, that's your cue, go ahead, hit the music, we're good. And it's now turned into such a storyline focal point of emphasis, which I don't hate. Wrestling has been now pulling back the curtain of real, what's not real, the land of kayfabe, and what does that all mean for a few years now. So in that realm, if you're going to pull off something supernatural, you're going to have to make it in a world of realism to start. So they go through the gorilla position, and the only person that guaranteed that you saw back there who was beaten up or bloodied or a splatter of blood on the wall or what looked like a gunshot, but just a wound on their head, was Chad Gable. And Chad Gable, who I believe in some of the promos that were in the QR codes and what have you, something akin to, you changed your ways, you used to say thank you, but not anymore, to that effect. And what was Chad Gable's big quote over the last few years as he's turned into this quirky Kurt Angle character? I thank you. But he doesn't do that anymore. And we'll get to what I think this means in regards to what the Wyatt Six is capable of. But we see Chad Gable out. He's done. A lot of other talent, seemingly, we don't really know, are beaten up, bloodied, and with every camera turn, unveils a new character, including what looked to be Dexter Lumis, what looked to be Eric Rowan, Joe Gacy from NXT, like I mentioned, Nikki Cross, and then, of course, there was an empty chair as well. But Uncle Howdy made the appearance. If you count the empty chair, which means Bray Wyatt's spirit would actually live on forever, he is the sixth member of the Wyatt Six. And it's six, stylized S-I-C-K, six. The six is an S, but you pronounce it six. Sick as in sick and twisted. Six as in the number six. I mean, Devil 666. Maybe Gunther's in there. He held the title for 666. But no, this is a supernatural deal here. One of the most unforgettable moments and interactions I think I've seen in WWE for a while. And look, I've mentioned it. The Fiend's entrance at SummerSlam 19 was one of the most remarkable things I'd ever seen. And it was very akin to The Undertaker ascending to heaven at Royal Rumble 94. Something that only the supernatural in WWE could pull off. But here is the caveat and where I can try to help with where are they going to go with this now? Because even with The Fiend, how far could they go? I was there, October of 2019, Sacramento, California, Hell in a Cell, Seth Rollins, The Fiend, there was the box of tools, the giant hammer, and it was like a horror movie. They had to call off the match because it was going to get too brutal. They called off the finish that was too brutal in a Hell in a Cell match. Think about that for a second. The crowd, days removed from the first ever episode of Dynamite, chanted AEW very, very loud that night. But throughout the years of The Fiend, they figured out some things outside of him losing to Goldberg, of course. And they made it work. Although, the last appearance in the Pitch Black match was purely for advertising purposes, which is kind of depressing when you think about it. I enjoyed the black light and how that all worked, but outside of that, I think it was kind of disappointing that it was just a brand-sponsored feud. But here's the thing. First of all, I think Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, Bray Wyatt would absolutely approve of this group continuing even without him actually being there. I like to think that he would want his brother, or Uncle Howdy, to push forth. I really think that the creativity and the willingness to do whatever it took for the pro wrestling business to thrive, persevere through the future, and to sustain a future for the future of pro wrestling and the guys and girls that are in it. I think it's necessary to, the cliche is the show must go on. And I think you incorporate the spirit of Bray Wyatt here with the Wyatt Sick6. And I don't think it's a bad thing to incorporate Bray at all. I've definitely seen some people being like, "This he never would have gone along with this," and I'm like, "This is Wyndham Rotunda, the guy, Bray Wyatt, the character, would have absolutely loved if to see this play out, even if he's not actively a part of it. I think this is exactly what he would have wanted to have happen eventually for WWE in a realm like this." The second point, for something, quote, supernatural, and they beat up all these guys, and Chad Gable is going to be off TV for a while, and how can they sustain this? They're just going to beat everybody up and brutalize them and beat them almost to death. How is that realistic? How are we going to go week to week? Are they just going to run through? Is Uncle Howdy going to be world champion? What's going to happen? If the Chad Gable investigation thing that I kind of laid out, where they mention how he used to be a good guy, or he used to have a good piece of him, but now it's gone. If that is true, I think that the Wyatt Sick6 role in WWE, outside of maybe having some matches at some point, I don't know how that will work, but let's say they don't have matches, but outside of that happening at some point in the future, I truly think that the Wyatt Sick6 are going to be akin to the Shield as vigilantes, as hounds of justice, righting the wrongs, being the good guy when there's no good to be had anymore. If there's someone that's doing something wrong, if there's someone that's turned their back for a greater evil, I think the Wyatt Sick6 are going to be the people to put those guys, those girls, those characters in their place. I don't think you need matches for that to happen. I think a lot of, as they say, gaga, lights off, lights on, backstage segments, vignettes, maybe a cinematic match. I wouldn't hate that. Bray was in the Firefly Funhouse match, and I know it was It was absolutely because of the pandemic, but why not continue that legacy and not have to truly suspend all disbelief? You put it in a cinematic match, anything's possible. And I think the fans would be more receptive. But I truly think that the Wyatt Six are going to be the good for when good's unavailable. And the heroes that we don't really know we needed. But they're going to do things for good. I think that's the direction they're going to go. Like I said, I think it's very tough to kind of place them in a match without them just winning everything or losing and then they lose all cachet. I don't know, but to me, I think you could play it off how the Shield were initially. They only had 3 guys. You could have matches, but I think they're going to be vigilantes of justice and try to right the wrongs of WWE in the spirit of The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, Wyndham Rotunda. So that is the Juice Box this week. I would just like to mention, I felt that the ending of Raw gave me a lot of, this is the horror buff in me. Halloween 5, how the ending of that movie ended and how it took place really kind of gave me an eerie vibe to the end of Raw where, a couple of ominous figures come into a building, the gorilla position in this regard, wipe out everybody, and then all you see is the end result, the massacre, and lo and behold, all that's left are the Wyatt Six. So, love that, love the horror aspect, big fan of it, and I think it can be done in a way that is believable. So, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. I was thrilled to see the response from everybody out there kind of being on board with it. So, outside of a few haters, but I mean, welcome to the internet wrestling community. But this has been the Juice Box. We've got Forbidden Door preview prediction show next week. We've got the Money in the Bank prediction show the following week. Hopefully we'll get Josh Eisenberg for one, if not both of those shows, but who knows. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks you might see some more stuff down the pike in the feed. I'll address that as we move forward. I've got a SIP series hopefully being recorded in the next couple of weeks to be put to air. We're still actively working on the YouTube presentation of the Juice Box going forward for the sake of interviews or live content or other content featuring video. We are actively working on it as we speak. All the interns at the Juice Box, including myself, round the clock work to try to make this thing grow for everybody out there to enjoy. So with all that said and done, I am Juice Springsteen. Once again, follow me on Twitter at JuicySteen, on Instagram at Juicy Wrestling Closet. Subscribe to the Juice Box on YouTube at JuicySteen. You can listen to the Juice Box on Amazon Music, juicysteen.podbean.com, Spotify, like I said, with YouTube, and on Apple Podcasts. And if you listen to it on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please leave a rating and review. That would be fantastic, and it would help the show grow. 5 straws would really help the show. And if you check it out on YouTube, keep tabs on that. The RSS feed gets updated with all these episodes. And again, hopefully some video content in the future. Also, check out Final Bell Media at Final Bell Media on Twitter and on YouTube. Check me out. Going on there for some Who Killed WCW stuff. Maybe some other stuff in the future. But all those guys, Andrew, Blake, Ellis, Corey, great guys over there at Final Bell. So looking forward to working with them more. But as always, I am Juice Springsteen. I'll see you guys next week with the Forbidden Door pre-show predictions, or predictions pre-show, whichever you want to call it, right here on the Juice Box. That was the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to the Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.